This week's Torah portion is Parshat Noach, contains the story of the flood and Noah and the ark and others, the Tower of Babel. The story of Noah and the ark has given rise to many, many questions, and within them, interestingly, some very practical questions. What would it actually look like? How could it be? What are the details of transporting many of the world's mammals and a family of humans on a giant ship at sea for 40 days while it's storming outside and the world is getting destroyed? What did people eat? Where did they sleep? Where did they go to the bathroom? Who was in charge of the tigers and the leopards, etc.? You could go on. And let's look at just one of those questions, which I think is small but interesting nonetheless, and it actually ties various parts of the Noah story together. So first, in Genesis chapter 6, verse 21, God is speaking to Noah about what he's supposed to do regarding the ark. And God says, Ve'ata kach lecha mikol ma'achal asher yachel. You, Noah, before you go on the ark, take for yourself every food which is eaten. Ve'asafta elecha, gather it into yourself. V'hayalecha v'lahem la'achla, and it will be for you and for them, meaning all the other animals as well, to eat. So here, Noah is told that one of the various preparations he has to make both for the ark and what's going to come after the ark experience is to bring food into the ark. What do we see later on? Now we are in Genesis, later in the same Parsha. This is now the sixth Aliyah. The flood has happened. The Yonah, the dove, has been sent out to test for dry land, and now Noah leaves the ark with his family. But then what happens next? Vayachel Noach ish ha'adama v'yita karem. Noach he started out, he was a man of the earth, ish ha'adama v'yita karem. And first thing he does is he plants a vineyard. This does not go well. The very next line, this is verse 21, chapter 9. Vayesh mina yayin v'yishkar. He drank from the wine, which presumably he made. He becomes drunk. V'yitgal b'toch ahalo. And he became naked or revealed within his tent. And there's a negative incident that happens between him and his children, which the verses go on to detail. So let's look at a couple of comments on Rashi. The first is on the very first word of this verse, verse 20, Vayachel, which can mean to begin, but can also relate to the word chol, chulin, which mean mundane. So according to that second meaning, Rashi quotes the Midrash in Breshit Rabbah, Vayachel, Asa atzmo chulin. Noah made himself mundane or profaned himself. Shahayalo lasok tchila minitiyah acheret, because he should have first begun with a different sort of planting. That's the end of that comment. So what's that mean? What's the question that Rashi's implicitly asking here? The question is, what does it mean that the first thing Noah does when he leaves the ark is plants a vineyard and then drinks? That seems to be negative. So Rashi and the Midrash read that back into the word Vayachel, which could mean just simply he started, and read it rather as he profaned himself, meaning he chose to do something bad by choosing the first action that Noah's going to do now that he's living, his family is to sort of repopulate the earth, chooses to make wine. That's seen here as negative. Let's look at now a second comment of Rashi on the same verse. Vayita karem, he planted a vineyard. Says Rashi, again quoting from the earlier Midrash, Kshenichnas leteva, when he originally had entered the ark, hichnis imo, he took with him zmurot, which is grape cuttings, grapevine branches, V'chure te'enim, as well as date saplings. That's the end of the comment. what's the implicit question that Rashi's asking and then answering here? Namely, how did Noah have these agricultural implements and plants, saplings, to start planting, to become, as the verse says, Ish Adamah, a man of the land, a farmer? Says Rashi, quoting the Midrash, he had brought these things with him earlier. Now we know that 3 chapters earlier, God had said, go gather food. So perhaps it would make sense to say this comment here that Rashi's not just, that Noah didn't just bring food, but also brought plants to engage in agriculture after the experience on the ark. Let's see now what the Maharal, in his book, the Gur Aryeh, which we are reading, is going to say here. He's going to kind of combine these and make a comment. First, he's going to say, why is it that why does Rashi have to make both of these comments? Let's see what he says. De'im lo kain, if it were not so that Noah had brought with him grape plantings, mehechan haya litakarem, how would he have been able to plant a vineyard? Ella, so it must be, shehichnissimo zmirot v'churei te'enim. It must be that he brought with him these saplings, both grape and date. But now I have a question. The verse only tells us he planted a vineyard, which implies grapes, and he made wine. Why does the comment of Rashi add dates as well? Umasha hosif v'churei te'enim. So why does it add he also brought date saplings? Yesh mefarshim de'im lo kain, because there are those who explain that if he hadn't also brought dates, kasha hahi delael, this would pose a difficulty to what we said earlier when we said regarding the notion, that word vayachel, that he profaned himself, she'amar sha'asat mochulin shahaya l'lasok b'nitiyah acheret, that when we said that he sort of profaned himself by starting planting with a vineyard, dilma lo haya lo nitiyah acheret. Maybe you could have said, wait a sec, that wasn't him profaning himself. He simply had nothing else to plant. But now that we learn later in the verse on this other midrash that Rashi cites, that Noah had other plants he'd brought with him. He had date saplings. Now it makes sense to say, oh, he could have planted something else, but he chose not to. Vehekshu. But now there's a further question. Lama hichnisimo elu hashnayim bilvad v'tulo. But wait a sec. Why did he only bring these 2 things? So you're going to tell me he only brought grapes and dates onto the ark with him? Could have brought a variety of things. He would have known that they would have wanted all kinds of foods. So he's going to quote one answer that he doesn't like, and then he'll give his own answer. Tirates Rabbeinu Tam Me'orleans, who is a Tosafist, Bishvil shehem mitkalkalim yoter mishar nitiot b'mayim. Says, oh, these 2 fruits, grapes and dates, are the most prone to being ruined in water. It's a very nice answer that Noah thought about what's going to happen when the earth is inundated with water. Well, maybe most species of food will survive, but I know that grapes and dates won't. And that's why he chose those 2 to bring onto the ark. The Gur Aryeh Maharal does not like that answer. Akasha al perushzeh, but this is a difficult answer. Daha nikre mabul shebala hakol. Why is the flood called in Hebrew the mabul? Because it's bala hakol, because it enveloped and ruined everything. Meaning not just those fruits, but every fruit. V'kol hazra'im v'alinot balu, v'lo nishar echad sha'arei hakol bala. Every food, every fruit was destroyed. So don't tell me, I don't like that answer that says he only brought those 2 because they were the only 2 that would have been ruined. Rather, we see from another general Jewish understanding of the flood that everything was ruined. So instead, what's the reason he gives? V'ali nira, it seems to me, nitnei shehem machlei adam biyoter mishar ilanot He says, actually, those are the two fruits that were most eaten by people. Dates and maybe date honey, which derives from it, and grapes and the wine that comes from it. He says those are the two most important fruits, and that's why Noah would have brought them. But he says certainly, that there were other foods that were needed that were also brought onto the ark, and yet quotes from the same midrash that Rashi quotes from, Sha'af grofit lezayit hevi. There were also olive saplings that were brought. Even though Rashi doesn't cite that in the midrash, the Maharal notes that indeed, according to Jewish tradition, there were other foods that were brought on to the ark, anything that would be needed, because he quotes from it's another midrash which says, "Ein adam kones ela im kein tzarich lo lebesof." People would only gather for themselves what they were ultimately need. You're not going to bring something with you on a long trip that you're not going to need. You only pack what you need, and therefore he says there were many things that were brought. The midrash cites some of them. Rashi cites a smaller group, but really anything which was really needed was brought. These are the two things that Rashi cites because they were the most commonly eaten, and that is how the Maharal explains it. Again, this is sort of a small explanation. It doesn't necessarily speak to much larger cosmic ideas, but I always like to explore how the commentators think about even some of these smaller questions, like here, what was brought on the ark? How did people eat? How could it make sense to say that Noah planted a vineyard afterwards, and why would that be a bad thing? So, as always, we study the comments of Rashi and then the Maharal's super commentary in his Sefer, in his book, the Gur Aryeh. That's how we'll be learning together this year. Always a pleasure learning with you. More next week.